Hello, my name is Kaylee Wheeler, and I'm going to be talking about the Whole30 diet. So, the Whole30 diet is more or less like a plan. It's a month long, and you eliminate certain food groups to try to see. It's like a body reset. Um, so, like I just said, short-term nutritional reset, removing certain food groups such as sugar, grains, and dairy from the diet for 30 days. Once the 30 days are up, you're encouraged to start reintroducing those eliminated foods back into your diet. Food groups can be added in any order, and then upon reintroduction, you got to be aware of the symptoms such as gastric problems, rashes, pain, or energy dips that were once probably brought on by foods that you had before doing this diet. So this all began with these two sports nutritionists, Melissa Hartwig and Dallas Hartwig. So Melissa actually used to be a drug addict, and when she went to rehab and decided to turn her life around, she got into fitness, health, and whatnot. And her husband at the time, Dallas, they were known just got done with the workout, and he was like, "Hey, you want to do like a kind of like a body cleanse?" And so they made up this meal plan, and it worked really well for them. So then they created this whole program, and it's actually fairly popular. The overall goals with this is to improve your overall wellness, reduce inflammation, boost energy levels, and get better sleep. So foods that are included in the Whole30 diet, there's a lot of things you can have. It's mostly like unprocessed. I can't even say mostly, it's pretty much all unprocessed whole foods. All unprocessed meat is accepted, such as chicken, turkey, pork, beef, duck. Same goes for seafood too, such as like salmon, cod, scallop, shrimp, and canned tuna. Vegetables, all vegetables are included besides corn and beans. Fruits are okay to have as well. Some natural fats can include extra virgin olive oil, some coconut oil, and tallow. Nuts and seeds, almonds, cashews, all of those things are accepted as well. Not really any limitations to herbs, spices, and seasonings, so you can keep doing that and want to flavor the food. So there are foods to avoid, and a lot of these is like added sugar, so any maple syrup, honey, stevia, or simply just even regular sugar that's natural, I guess, but it's being added into food is something that should be avoided. No grains, no legumes, like beans, peas, lentils, all that stuff. No dairy from, all the sources like cows, goats, sheep, and all that. Let's see. You can't do meat alternatives either, because those are also processed, and no alcohol or no other food additives such as MSGs. Okay, so there is some pros and cons that come with this plan. The pros include emphasizing wholesome, real food. You don't have to weigh yourself or need to be reassured with your weight, because this is not meant for weight loss, even though people do, or I guess can, experience weight loss while doing this because they're cutting out all these processed foods versus all these natural whole foods. So some people just naturally lose weight, and there are people who actually do this to lose weight too, but that's just not the overall goal or how this was originally intended to be made for. There's no fasting or any complicated meal time, no essential special products or supplements you have to buy. You can have coffee. Let's see, in the cons, it's a very restricted diet, so if you don't have any cheat days in this whole month that you do this meal plan. So basically, if you were to slip up or have a cheat day, you have to start all over again because then it will be ineffective. There's meal planning and preparation required. It's difficult to follow in social settings, especially if you're going out to restaurants and stuff. You don't know sometimes what could be added in, even though, there's things you can get like chicken and broccoli and all that stuff that you can generally get in a meal, but you don't know exactly what is fully added in when it's cooked. So that does make things a little complicated. And as we already discussed, no wiggle room for 30 days. Avoiding sugar and alcohol may lead to physical withdrawal symptoms. So this would be something that I would recommend probably not cutting out completely. And maybe even if you thought about doing this, you might want to start slowly weaning yourself off of like sugar or alcohol before starting this, just so it's not so abrupt. And also, this diet does not adhere to USDA guidelines because you are removing some food groups. Target groups would include people with potential food allergies, digestive problems, rashes, or difficult to diagnose symptoms, and people who are looking to reset their eating habits. And like I said before, there are people who do this for weight loss as well. That's just not really the main focus. So steps to start, always talk with your doctor, especially if you do have underlying health conditions, and like people who have food disorders like binge eating disorders or like bulimia or anything like that, because this may not be the correct diet for you. So before starting any kind of different meal plan that is not very balanced, I would recommend probably talking to a doctor first. Familiarize yourself with the rules before you begin. Read food labels to recognize off-limit items. And like we previously talked about, slowly wean yourself off of sugars and alcohol to make the transition easier. And then you can also test some Whole30 approved meals in advance. There are long and short term effectiveness associated with this. So the short term, which is the 30 days, cutting out sugars, grains, dairy, legumes, alcohol, processed foods, reset cravings, and stabilize energy, identify how foods affect sleep, digestion, mood, and it reduces inflammation and discomfort, or it can. Long-term effectiveness, you can discover which foods work best for your body, build lasting, healthy eating habits, improve your relationship with food, maintain energy, digestion, and symptom control. So there are some debates following this diet. So critics say it cuts out too many foods because it's also pretty restrictive, and it can lead people to not really stick with it. There's limited research. It's more or less personal based for people, considering it's for like a body reset, and there's just things that people like different food items people process better than others, and also people can have a bunch of different symptoms that others also don't have. And there is a lack of large studies. There is some, like we have discussed before, weight loss confusion. Says it's not for weight loss, but many use it that way, which it is true. And just naturally, if you're eating a lot of high calorie, high sugar, high fat, processed foods, and then you switch over to healthy, whole foods, you might just naturally lose weight because of that. And whole foods can be expensive and prep heavy. A lot of this stuff, is fresh. People are probably going to want to cook a lot of it down, season it. And with like fresh produce, with the vegetables and fruits, stuff like that, you can buy a lot of it. Sometimes if it doesn't get used up, it gets bad quick too, so you have to go back and buy more. And that is all. Thank you for watching.